Policy, call policy meeting to order. Let's see, is everybody in?
I'm here.
And there's Katie, all right. Let's call to order, roll call.
I'm here. Ben's here.
Ben Wen, Tamika Vukovic. Okay, we're not gonna go over the cell phones because we have no cell phones. Let's see. We're just gonna jump down to approval of agenda. Motion to approve agenda.
So moved.
Second, only thing I have to say is the recommendation action should probably be taken out of there. It says motion to approve agenda and minutes from March 11, 2021 policy meeting. So
Gotcha.
yeah, just take that out of there. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No, motion carries. On to discussion items. 2A, visitor participation.
So just wanted to bring this to you guys to see what you're thinking about this. I know you have talked about it in the past. Danielle sent me some policies around visitor participation. And we had originally talked about this when we talked about potentially going back to in-person because that could change our visitor participation. I recognize that we're not sure at this point if we will be going back into in person, but then just still having a conversation around what you guys, if there's any changes you feel like should be made to visitor participation to begin with, and if so, what you would want that to look like.
Well, I read it. Oh, Tamika, do you want to say something? Okay. I read it and so I guess I forget if it was your draft or if it was in the rules saying that visitor participation would come first versus last. So I guess we should discuss that change and then, or possible change. And then, oh, it got dark in here. Oops. It's fine. And then the other one was the order in which we talk about items. So I do like the idea that if people want to talk about items on the agenda, that's separate from the public participation. But then it said that it would be the administrators talking first, then the public, then the board. And I guess we haven't been doing that. So I kind of like that order, actually. I don't know what Tamika thinks, though. And just so you know, you're muted.
I think having a conversation too about people in the public talking about things on the agenda or off the agenda is a conversation to have as well, because typically I've never seen visitor participation where they just comment on each agenda item as you go through. Usually it's like, you know what I mean, like a standing item when they come in and they talk about their concern, which could be on or off, depending on what you guys want. But usually it's like all at once. Do you know what I mean? It's not like you stop and I understand why that would happen with COVID.
So this is where I have an issue with the visitor participation. Yes, we should have visitor participation, but what we cannot do is slow our rolls every single time something comes up. I still think that visitor participation should be a non-agenda item, which is anything that is not agenda, something that they want us to look at, something that they want us to, bring up in a future meeting. If there is cause or do they want to talk about an agenda item, I think we have to have some kind of mechanism where they notify us, and I'm kind of going by the way the council does it, and it's a little bit different, but it works. And the reason is that on the common council side, we have non-agenda items, but if a person sees something on an agenda they want to speak with or talk, speak on, they just talk to one of the representatives or their alderman or whoever it is and say, hey, I would like to speak on this item. I just think that it's a slippery slope. You want to do both things. You want transparency and you want everybody to be heard. But also, you don't want to hear the same thing 622 times. And we also want to respect the time of the people who are actually coming to these meetings. There has to be some mechanism that, like, we have a signing sheet when people come in,
Mhm.
when we're in person, and they will say what they want to speak on. I don't know what that looks like. Maybe we, at least, I don't know how this looks in person, because we never had a big issue about it until this year. Normally, if somebody had something to say, they would just say it. And, and that was that. But this last year, everybody has an opinion because of COVID and, school closing. So it's a lot. I think if we have a big item, maybe we say we're going to have participation because it is been talked about. People are conversing with us. They want to know some issues, so we may open it. But I think if they want, and then the other part of it is that if they want to participate, what the previous board did, they participated in committee, where the decision in the discussion is actually happening is in committee, depending on what the committee is. Like if you were, I don't want to sell Good Hope School, they would come into the buildings and grounds, and that's where the big discussions are happening. That's where visitor participation is happening, because that is where that particular item is going. You hear from them, and then I think that's when the committee can either say, you know what, this is a bigger issue than just this. Maybe we should put it on the agenda and have a visitor participation for this particular thing, like school masks. That might come to us for policy. We might talk about it in policy, but then because it's a bigger item, we might want to have a public part or a public hearing and say, everybody can come in and talk. I just think it's just weird for last year. Yeah. Literally the years before that, we never had an issue. If somebody wanted to talk, that was okay and that was fine. But we usually kept it to non-agenda items unless they contacted Andy or they contacted myself and said, I want to speak on this item.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that's the key, is that in that visitor participation at the end, it's non-agenda items. So they can't really talk about something that's on the agenda. So I guess I agree. And maybe the easiest way to do it would be if someone wants to comment on an agenda item, we could have like a Google form or something, and they could like fill it out, for each agenda item. And then we would know it beforehand, and maybe you have to sign up 12 hours in advance or something. But that's kind of an arbitrary number.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you guys, it's just really interesting because it's exactly the opposite of every other school district I've seen. Normally you can only comment on agenda items when you do public comments. So it's totally flipped.
I've never done, we've always done non-agenda items. And I'll give you an example of one of the things I don't want to happen. Like, I always go back to Shorewood because they do stuff half wrong. They have two parts where it's visitor participation, and they literally go through this micro, nitpicking of the agenda items, and then they'll go through half, they'll take a break, and then they'll go through their other half, and their meetings last from 6 at night until like 10 at night, and then they go and do a, what do you call it, after you're all done with everything, and you all come together to talk again, what is that, like not a breakout session, but
I know what you're saying. I can't.
Yeah, then they do that. We are a small school district. We have had some big issues that, yes, has, traumatically changed everybody's PTSD on all of this. But I want to make the policy not for the problems we're having at this moment. I want the policy, we can make exceptions to the policy. We can ask the board to vote for an exception to a policy. Like right now, I want to make a motion to actually allow people to speak for visitor participation at this moment. But I think our policy should be what's going to be for the future, not just this one moment.
Mhm.
And we can actually put that in a policy that says, hey, we may, at the discretion of the board,
Yeah.
and I said a board vote, because, and I'm not trying to be mean, but Andy and I have like argued about when should we participate and where we shouldn't. I've lost sometimes I've won. So I think it should be a board decision if we're just gonna accept that. So I think there's twofold. Or the other way I've heard it is that at the beginning, we do visitor participation of agenda items. We will not comment on anything. We just want to hear what you have to say on agenda items. You won't get a chance to talk again. And we go through so you at the beginning, talk about whatever you want to talk about on the agenda. We make notes about that. Then we go through our agenda. They will not be allowed to talk again. They're not going back and forth with us. We're discussing, we vote. And then at the end, we do one more where it's a non-agenda item. Like, okay, do you have something you want to talk about that you want us to bring on another agenda or another month? That is another way I heard my friend who's on a school board, she's in Texas. That's how they kind of do it. Not that I want to ever model Texas, but.
Tamika, I like that a lot for the reason that if people talk about agenda items at the beginning, then as we're going through the meeting, if they had questions that they brought up during that, we can actually address them as part of what we were talking about, or make sure we focus on something they may be confused about. Like that gives us I think a heads up on like potentially where we might not be communicating well. It gives us a chance to do that. And I like that a lot.
And then we don't, and also we're not going to argue back and forth where we won't comment at the time. And that's where we get in trouble because we start going back and forth. But what about this? And then we answer, but wait a minute, that's not what I think. No, you say what you have to say at the beginning. We will come down to whatever we have. If you have questions later on, you can contact you or the board or whatever. But, and then the second part is non-agenda items, because sometimes after we go through the whole meeting, a parent's like, oh, well, maybe they should look at bicycle policy. And then it's like, okay, can you put bicycle policy on the agenda for next time or put it through a committee? Yeah. Therefore, we're still moving along. We still hear what everybody has to say, but yet we're controlling it in the sense that you have this amount of time. We are not going to answer anything in this part. We're not going to comment on anything you have to say. We're just getting information about what you want to say and then go into our agenda from there.
I like that a lot. And like you said, at the end, the non-agenda items could be things we want to add in the future that we didn't even think of.
Right. Because of the conversation we had today or the conversation that we had. That's something that those two things that I thought about. I just and I would like to hear, this is one of those things I may want to hear from the public on. And I know there's some people who think that you should have a visitor participation for every agenda item so they can speak. And then there's some people who like it way it was before, where we didn't really have visitor participation except for Carla.
Yeah.
Katie, are you there? I wonder if Katie's here.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, my kids are just loud though. So if you hear
All right. Well, no, Katie, I want to, not to put you on the spot, but you come to almost all the committee meetings. You come to the school board meetings. What is your thoughts on visitor participation?
I like what you proposed, where agenda items, they say their piece at the beginning, so they know they've been considered when you guys are debating and voting and everything. But I also agree that you don't need that back and forth on everything that everyone says. Like if they want that, they can contact you ahead of time. And that's why your contact information is there. I don't think you need that in the meeting. And then, and then the non-agenda items at the end, because that's when you'd be talking about what you're doing next time.
Right.
Or like you said, bring stuff up at committees.
Right. And I think we have to really preface, look, most of these items are coming through committee. They're not going straight from one place to another, like from conception to board.
Right.
So
Yeah,
there's
limited discussion at the actual board meetings. The discussion is happening in the committees, and then you just make the recommendation.
Exactly. Thank you, Katie. Ben, do you have anything else?
Ben?
No. Yeah, no, I think, yeah, having it at the beginning of agenda items or before the agenda items would be a good idea. I mean, the only reason why you might do it at every agenda item is just because then it's contextual.
Yeah, but you can't do
but
that.
it could take a little bit longer.
No, you can't.
But also,
go ahead.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that the information is presented and then maybe their questions have been answered. But on the other hand, just doing it all at once, might be more efficient.
And Ben, I like the idea of like, I might come with this presentation on something that I think has answered every question.
Yeah.
But if somebody talks at the beginning, they may say something I didn't even think about that I need to clarify. And so then when we get to that agenda item, I can be more clear about something like, I think that's helpful.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm indifferent. I think both ways will work fine.
I just have this thing where you want transparency and you want people to talk to you, but sometimes they have to take the initiative to contact you. I know I can talk to Ben. Any of the people who email me, depending on what it is, I always respond to either thank you or thank you for your consideration or what you're talking about. I usually always respond. If they want to speak, I ask them what is the issue, and they'll tell me one way or the other. And then I say, well, I will bring this up and maybe we will discuss it in the meeting, or I'll make sure that the superintendent knows that this is your question. And that cuts down on these meetings. And when I say that we're losing people because our meetings are too long, they're not getting any information because they're like, oh, I can't handle this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be like, I want to be aware of people's time. But I also want to make sure that people can speak, to whatever they need to speak to, but they also have to, there's committee meetings, there are different ways that they can do it. And if you want to invest time in just this, that you have to put some effort into it too.
So should we make a motion to change the official format? Because right now the official format on the written policy is something different.
Yeah, it's just a discussion item at this point. So if you feel like, if you feel like that's something we want to move forward with right away, we can bring it to next week still.
I think you should put it next week discussion, not that we, just to let them know what we're thinking. Because this is, and then bring it back to policy if we have, if they have some other questions, because I know Danielle will have some questions about this. She may not like it. Some people will, but this is kind of like one of those things where this is what we want. We think that this is the way we should go. We're bringing this as a discussion item, not necessarily setting policy yet. If you have any suggestions, we'll take it back, bring it to policy, tweak it, and then have our full recommendation. That's just kind of how what do you think, Ben?
Yeah, that's fine. It's just, as the policy is written, then next week we'll have to do people are commenting on, the agenda
Right.
items. Yeah.
We
Yeah,
can't
but
change anything for
Yeah.
next
well,
week.
it's,
Okay.
I don't think it's gonna be that big of a deal because
No, I
we
don't think
haven't
so
done
either.
it in
Yeah.
all this time. We're
Yeah.
not, we haven't done it in all this time. We've
Yeah.
always said non-agenda items.
No, I think it'll be, yeah, let's just bring it as a discussion. I think that's fine.
That makes
Yeah.
sense, because like you said, Tamika, everybody can ask questions then. And then if we tweak it and then bring it in September.
Yeah, just this, I don't want to do this all the time where we don't put a recommendation in. But this one, I think there's too many opinions.
Mhm.
Like everybody has a different opinion. I know Andy will have a different opinion. Danielle will probably have a different, so we may be able to, it's gonna be up to me and Ben to make the final recommendation. But this one, I wanna hear if we can find something better, if somebody has a better idea, because I want this policy to go through for years to come, not just when we're in pandemic mode.
So do you want me to bring it, so it's a discussion, but discussion around this recommendation with the beginning and the end?
Yes.
Sure,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
And
Got it.
then, yeah, so we're keeping it close. So
Okay.
we're bringing it in,
okay,
but they might want to tweak it.
got it. Okay.
That's a good
no,
idea.
that's
Well,
fine.
I would actually say, discussion with possible action, because what happens if everybody loves it?
Right, then we might as well just.
Then
yeah,
it doesn't need to come back. They're like, oh, perfect. I just
Got
want to
it.
have that option in case it does.
Sounds good, got it.
Okay, so we don't need a motion for that because we're not necessarily doing a recommendation, we're doing a discussion. And we have thoughts on it, but it's not a recommendation, this is just our thoughts. They can bring it to a full vote with the board.
Sounds good.
Okay, next agenda item is WASB Policy Resource Guide.
So I just wanted to share this information with you and then I can bring it back, give you guys some time to digest it and bring it back to the next committee if you want. I would eventually need board approval because there's a cost to it, obviously. So I put some resources in the folder. I don't know if you had a chance to look at any of them.
It wasn't
I know
in
that-
I didn't see him in the folder.
Oh, did Karen
That's-
not put them in there? Okay, so
Yeah,
I'll,
Did you get him? Ben?
sorry. Okay, no, I did not see anything new in the board folder, no.
okay, so I will share
don't
it with you and then you'll have some time before our next meeting to look at it. But so basically, here's some sample policies. WASB is kind of a nice in between. So it's not you trying to figure it all out on your own, but it's not paying as much as you would with like Neola, because Neola is pretty expensive. So WASB has some pretty good templates. I used this the last 2 years in Lake Geneva. And so they give you sample policies, they give you sample documents that go along with the policies. So like, here's an example of a sample policy. Obviously you tweak it for your district and you put in, but you know that it's fitting the law, it's fitting all the requirements in the policy. The other nice thing they do is they come in, they have a service where they'll come in and take all your policies, review every single one of them, and then they just give you a sheet that basically says, okay, you're missing these 5 policies, like you're out of compliance, you need to get those in place right now. And then they'll go to the next category that'll be, okay, these 15 policies, you've got them, but you're not up to date, so you need to like bring those up to date. And then, so they just prioritize it, because I've looked at that book and it's like this big of policies. And then they'll also go through and say, these things aren't necessarily policies, they're more like handbook items or staff procedures or whatever. So they really just go through the whole thing and then give you a place to start, because I know there's a lot of work. It's not to say that on the outside of that, if there's a specific policy the board wants to look at creating, that we don't do that, because we do. Like if we're responsive still, if there's something specific you want us to look at and work on, but it's just nice to help us get a handle on the order of the work and the order in which to start tackling it, because there's a lot. Let's see, like here's another, just like another sample policy. So I can share all this stuff with you. Obviously, there's not going to be like, it was just a discussion item anyways. And since you didn't have the actual stuff in there. So here's the WASB policy resource guide. And just a summary of like the access that you get. So access to sample policy, and it talks to board docs too, which is really nice. So it can be put right into board docs as you're updating these policies so that we actually will have like an electronic right in board docs where the public can go in there and pull policies, which is something that we need to do too, because we don't have them on the website right now. So yeah, there's a lot of information in here that I can just share with you guys and give you some time to look at it over the next, several weeks before our next meeting. They
Yeah, could you
update
just-
you on, oh, I'm sorry.
Could you just share the folder with us and then
Yeah.
it's all, okay. Sweet.
Yep. They update you on a regular basis. So if there's a change to a policy, you'll immediately get a notification so that you know that you have to go in and change it. Like if there's a change to a law or a change something at the state level, they make sure that you have that too. So yeah, I'll share this whole folder with you. I actually just copied the email from the contact at WASB right into the folder too, so you can take a look at that. And then clearly they'd be happy to come in, like if you wanted them to come in and do some sort of a presentation, they'd be happy to do that too for the board. All right, so I just shared the folder with you. So the like recent court decisions, hot topics, they'll just make sure you get updated. Title IX was huge last year. There were big changes to the Title IX policy. So we use them to make sure that we were up to date and had the right information in there. You have access to legal webinars around policy. And then PRG subscribers, there's certain webinars and video series that just our board and administration would have as a member of the policy resource guide. And then like they noted here, if we'd like to see a demonstration of the online resources, that we could contact their director for that. This is the quick check I was talking about, where they go through all your policies and then just prioritize them to let us know what to work on first, second, and third.
Okay.
So now you have the folder now. So I apologize. I thought that was already attached.
Thanks, yeah, I'll check it out.
And I will look at it as well. So this is, I know we had possibly put money in the budget for that group to come in and go over, what is it called? It started with an N.
Was it Neola?
Yeah, but this would replace that, is what
And
you're
it's a
saying?
lot, yeah, it's a lot less expensive
Okay,
than Neola. Neola pretty much just gives you the policy. You don't do like they create it and they give it to you, and then you just kind of, this one you have a little bit more flexibility to make it more specific for your district so that it
Okay.
fits a little bit better. But yeah, Neola is something, if you wanted to look at as well too, I could get some information on that and you could compare a little bit.
okay. Well, I like to compare.
Mhm.
But I think you're on the right track with this. I don't want to lose money
Mhm.
on it. If we can get what we need to get done this way without spending a whole bunch of money. And
Yeah.
so I just want to make sure that we don't, we automatically go to this when we may need something extra. You know what I mean? We
Yep.
might need something extra. So let's just, I want to look at this stuff. Ben will look at it. He'll meticulously look at all of that. All right.
All right.
So that was a non-action item. We are on the big three: visitor participation. There's something I'm supposed to say. Who wants to speak can speak. Lindsay, Katie, or Lindsay, do you have anything you want to say? Yep, going once. Going twice. Well, okay, and then we have the most important part of our agenda, item 4. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
30 minutes exactly.
Wow, yeah, very nice.
Boom. Got what he got done, but I'm gonna be sending you some stuff that I think we need to pull on policy, and I think Ben had a couple of ideas that
Okay.
he wanted to put on the policy agenda for next